Welcome to the At the Coalface podcast with your host, Jason Greenwood. This podcast is all about what it's really like in the trenches of digital and e-commerce. Welcome, John Stuckey, to the At the Coalface podcast.
Oh, thanks, Jason. Great to be with you.
Fantastic. Well, look, for the audience's benefit, John, you are the MD of MobileDigital, and you're based out of the Gold Coast. And MobileDigital specializes in text message-based marketing or mobile message-based marketing, SMSs, whatever you want to call them. And I actually saw a post by you with some really, really interesting mobile marketing data in terms of uptake and a couple of other things you posted on LinkedIn. And I actually reached out to you because of those posts, because I found them really enlightening around what's happening in the mobile marketing space, which I am by far not an expert in at all. And so I guess that's why I found it so interesting, because it's an area that I just do not specialize in. I've got a tiny sliver of experience in the space from way back in the day with my previous pure play e-commerce business. We ran a couple of mobile competition-based, text-based competitions back in the day via radio, where you had to text in a certain word to a text message to be entered into a draw. And we actually had to work with a developer to build out the text mobile number was provided by Vodafone, but we had to build out all the back-end technology. So we had to build out the message server. We had to build out the database server. We had to be able to collect the messages, basically. We had to be able to prove to Vodafone that we could run it, run this technology, use the technology, run the competition fairly, and be able to choose randomly from all the entrants. And we basically had to prove to them that we could build out the back end technology to support what we were trying to do. And obviously this is many years ago, so I'm sure the industry has moved a lot since then. But definitely my experience and knowledge in this space is super limited, and that's why I wanted to get you onto the podcast, because I think that this is it's a growing area for digital marketers. It's a growing channel, it's a growing opportunity, and it's something that I think our interest is going to be, our audience will be super interested in. So maybe you can just tell us really a little bit about, I guess, MobileDigital, how you guys got started, and really a little bit about the space.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, my wife, Eilish, is Irish. She had worked as a developer in the UK and in Ireland, and then came out and worked with a couple of companies in Australia. She just had this absolute belief that the mobile and text would be the best way that you would ever get in contact with people. And whilst email was very strong at the time, she just had this passion that, and you couldn't talk her out of it, that ultimately the mobile would be the best way for businesses to communicate with their customers, and that text ultimately, because we'd taken it on as, person to person text was huge. So she thought business to person text would take off as well. And so she started the company in 2013. So she started the company, Eilish started the company in 2013.
Yep.
And had some great success early with some clients, and then started to when it got some commercial traction, she asked me to come in. I'd run a few companies in the past, and so I came in and started to commercialize the company. We took it out of the front room of our house and went into an office, employed some people, raised some funds, and brought some customers on board.
Great. Well, look, that's, I guess, it's getting started in a bootstrap scenario. That's how a lot of businesses get started. And then I guess when they show some success, then others tend to want to jump on board. So that's awesome. And I mean, obviously now you've been running for 8 years, and, obviously the business sounds like it's gone from strength to strength. Have you seen the demand in the marketplace for SMS-based marketing grow, particularly during COVID? Have you seen the market opportunity increase? And I mean, I guess, what are some of the technical challenges that you find around SMS-based marketing? And do you provide everything? Do you provide the technology, the platform, the marketing campaign management, the creative? Do you kind of do end-to-end everything to do with mobile marketing, or do you specialize in one part of that?
Yeah, wow, long question. And let me try and break it down into bits. When we first started, we were pretty much giving people, we were doing it for people because that was really what their technology. So if we, from 2015, we brought on a number of clients and we were doing it for them because the technology wasn't available. The trouble with that approach is that it's like putting together a magazine, especially if you're doing both MMS and SMS messaging, because it's like producing a magazine. The second you want to push send on a message, somebody in an organization wants to change it. And so we basically realized that that wasn't a model that we could live with. We'd lived with that through 2015, but by the end of 2016, we decided that we would have to build a model, kind of like the MailChimp approach, where you could give the customer everything that they needed as a SaaS platform. And then all you did then was monitor the platform and make sure the platform was up and running. So at the end of 2016, we went out for funding. We got a couple of government grants and a couple of patents on innovation. And we created a platform which we called Sniper. And Sniper is basically a full message marketing tool that our customers log into. And then they manage and send all their own messages, and they can do everything that they need to do to have customer contact. They can do within that platform.
That's brilliant. So it's almost like a Canva for SMS messages.
Look, that's a really good example because we actually are integrated with Canva so that they can use the Canva tool to create. Canva's never been great at doing GIF, but you can bring a whole series of PNG messages or PNGs that you've created in Canva and bring them in, and then the tool will create them into a GIF. So as with us, you can send an SMS message, you can send a double SMS message, you can send a static PNG MMS message, or you can send a moving GIF MMS message. And our patent was that we designed the capability to be able to write to the MMS. So we can put 22 unique data tags on every MMS. So we can do a scaled one-to-one individual message with a name, with a unique name, a unique account code, a unique password, anything we need to do, and we can send them out like millions at a time on a one-to-one at scale.
Well, that's amazing. And does it facilitate two-way comms? So let's say a customer receives a message and they've got a question. I'm guessing that 9 times out of 10, it's a campaign or it's a promotional message, and there's maybe a URL hyperlink in the message that they tap on their phone, and then it opens up the browser to that specific promo or landing page. I'm guessing that that's pretty common, but does it also facilitate two-way comms with the customer? So if they respond to the message, then the merchant can receive it?
Yeah, and I think it's probably a good time. Like we're on really early days with a brand new channel. I mean, SMS, most people look at as it has been for years, a transactional diary reminder, delivery advice, or two-factor authentication tool. So there's those transactional messages. But now when you're looking at MMS and SMS messaging or text messaging, and you're using it as in a marketing sense, you've got to, when you start, you've got to think long term, because it's not going to go away. Because Dan Draper would have loved this. Always on, 98% delivery, visual, personal, instant. I mean, it's the perfect product. So in terms of two-way, yes, every customer gets their own dedicated send number, and every MMS or SMS is addressed to an individual phone number. So we don't rely on email. The core of our database is the phone number. We use that for a number of reasons. One, because of the two-way addressability, and two, we've done studies, but the average hold on your mobile number, i.e. people don't like to change their mobile number, is about 17 years, where an email address is about 3 to 4 years. I think most of us only let our mobile number go if we're being chased by a crazy ex-partner, or as happened in my case, an employer was paying my phone bill, and when I left, they wanted to keep my phone.
Yeah, look, I've had that in the past as well, and I usually have organized to be able to take that phone number with me when I left, even if I had to pay a little bit extra to be able to make that happen, because it was so important that I keep my phone number. Because, as you rightly point out, it's almost like changing banks or changing ERPs. Once something is embedded in your business,
Absolutely,
your personal life,
Jason, absolutely, Jason.
It's so painful that people just don't do it.
Yeah, so it's it's a long-term contact. So when we start with our customers and start talking to our customers, we say to them, look, you are going to have a text relationship with people for a long time. This is a channel. And I think the numbers that you saw in that post were that these like over an average of 2,000 companies in the US using text message marketing, they were now getting 18.2% of their online revenue through text marketing. And it used to be, 5 years ago, someone would have said, well, where does your online come from? You would have said, 19 to 21 from email, 22 to 24 from SEO, so much from drive-by, and so much from social. So there's this new category that's already generating 18.5% of online revenue. So it's an amazingly exciting category that at the moment most people don't really understand or are not involved in. And part of the earlier part of your question, which I'll come around to now, is have we seen a massive acceleration since COVID? Because people are saying that they want to get brands are losing contact with their walk, so there's no point having a shop in a mall where your brand is seen if people aren't going to the mall. So brands are starting to recognize that they need to retain contact with their customers, and email's a passive product, and so you can ignore email. And so if you're not getting your drive-by and you're not getting all the prior contacts that a brand would have had with their customers, then they're now reaching out for new ways to get in front of their customer's face. And with text and visual and being able to personalize those messages, you can put those messages in somebody's phone, knowing that 98% of people will see them, and that 90% will see them within 3 minutes. They're big numbers.
Yeah, absolutely big numbers. I guess my consideration and some of the things that immediately leap to mind when you're talking about this is, if I put myself in the customer's shoes, then I want to be able to have, I guess, the same level of control over the communications I receive, their frequency, the types, etc., that I would over email. And I think email's gotten a lot better, particularly with platforms like Klaviyo and other marketing automation platforms. They've gotten better at, obviously the customer has to opt in to be able to be on the mailing list in the first place, combined with the fact that with every single email that goes out, they can modify their preferences, they can unsubscribe, they can easily control, I guess, the level of interaction that they have with a brand via email. And I'm just wondering, does your platform facilitate something similar, i.e. a preference center that someone, from a message that they receive, they can tap, to change your preferences or unsubscribe, tap here kind of thing that sends them to a landing page where they can actually control? Or is it simply the ability to stop, and so they respond to a text message with the word stop or something like that? Is it, how sophisticated is the preference management layer of SMS messaging gotten, particularly not just in your technology, but just in general? How sophisticated has that preference management layer gotten in the whole model?
Okay, look, good question. I mean, there's two aspects you come at. One, you come at it from, there are legal requirements in relation to the Anti-Spam Act in Australia. Okay, so every message that is of a marketing nature must have an opt-out reply stop message. Okay. And so you have options there. You can just have, because primarily we recommend to our customers that they send from a two-way mobile number, then stop is automatically picked up by the system, and they will never receive another they will never receive another text message from that number. Okay, so that's the legal requirement. But you can also send them, there is a preference center and an ability to create there is a preferencing tool in the system, where, especially if people are reaching out for new customers. So with the growth of QR code, you can put a QR code in your store. The QR code generates a message that comes to the system. It delivers an automated keyword response that says, look, would you, thanks very much for, expressing your interest. Fill in this form and we'll give you a coupon or something like this. And that preference form can be how you want to set up. There's a huge amount of function in Sniper that's all, it's built for marketers. So marketers don't have to go to the chief technical officer to have any programming done. So it's really built around giving a marketer as much function as they can possibly, like no programming function, and the ability to do a preference survey and set those types of things up. So you can either have a simple opt-out or you can build a preference center which has those. Does that answer the question?
Absolutely. So it's similar to, I guess, how Klaviyo hosts the preference management page, and then you can style it and design it and do everything you like, but they actually host the preference management's page. And then obviously you could do that yourself. You could host that yourself and then integrate back to Klaviyo via API if you wanted to. But 95+% of merchants out there will just use the Klaviyo hosted preferences center and then perhaps integrate that back in from Klaviyo into, say, an ERP or a CRM or whatever the case may be beyond that. So I'm guessing that yours is quite similar in that you host the preference center page, and then that provides a URL that can be tapped on from a message. If they want to manage their preferences, they land on that page and they can control their preferences from there. I'm guessing that it's a similar type of model.
It's similar that way, and then basically there are API connections to be opt out to update the opt outs across the system. And then you've got to the clients have to work out what their opt-in preferences are. So if a client sets up their opt-in and opt-out preferences with I don't want any electronic messages, then that clocks them out of email and it clocks them out of text. Or you say, look, I don't want to get text, or I don't want to get email, or I want both. We certainly see that when we first started this, there was a real fear that people would find text more intrusive and therefore that the opt-out rates would be high. We certainly aren't seeing that. The opt-out rates are low. The published data says that 90+% of people prefer text above email and phone. And we certainly, that number to me is about 93%. We would say that there's probably 5 to 7% of your current base that doesn't want to be texted, but about 93 to 95% do. And a lot of them prefer text as a way of interacting. And also, too, one of the parts of your question earlier was, yes, we do see a huge amount of, even when they don't ask for two-way responses, we do see a lot of comeback. I mean, as an example, we had a customer who sent 6,000 offers out to their client base, and they sent it it was a bottle of wine that they'd purchased previously. They sent it to the name of the person. So, dear Jason, we know you bought this wine before. It's on at this price, signed by their wine person. That was all on the MMS image. They had, honestly, within half an hour, they had 2,000 people actually text back their orders. And they hadn't asked for a text back. So we're trying to massively get in touch with this retailer and go, guys, you've got people placing orders, because they didn't say text back your order. There were people like, I'm on holidays, can I have 2 cases? That's a great offer. It was just mental. So it ended up, and I can tell you exactly when that was in September of 2019. And we, the next week, went to our board and said, there is this massive demand for people to just get shit done on their mobile. We want to build a product. So we built a product called Rapid.shop, which we're just trialing with the customer now, which is a no username, no password, no logon product. Okay. Because I can send them in the link. So we have a product called click.link, and we have a product called click-to-shop.link. So you can send them this click-to-shop.link, and in the URL, in that URL that you're sending them, you can provide all the information that you need to populate an order.
Right. So in other words, it basically has all the URL variables.
Everything is set up.
Yep. So it's where it's basically they tap it pre-populates the cart, and all they got to do is say yes, basically, once they get redirected to the link.
Absolutely. First time, of course, because we process the first time they'd have to enter their card. We can provide, so we can pre-populate the order with every piece of information except the card. And so basically the first time they do it, then we have this process called Secure Mobile. So basically that secures that process. We then get a Stripe token, and then any time from any of our vendors that they ever want to come in, kind of like Shopify has, that you can come from Shopify, any Shopify vendor.
Yep.
But this is,
yep.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of the same thing. But basically this is on a mobile. So your order is presented to you completely in all its format. Your first time you ever use it, you have to put in your payment, and then forever after, everything is there, and you never have to enter any other things again. So, and it's brilliant because you can actually push a product and the picture of the product. So as they get the product, go, I want that. So it's brilliant for clearance. It's brilliant for wine. It's brilliant for some apparel items and things like that. So we're trialing it with a wine supplier at the moment. I just think we've just realized after, as you say, 7 or 8 years of doing it, that there's a group of people who just want to get as much done on their phone as possible, as fast as they possibly can, with no friction.
Yeah, I'm definitely one of those people. So, yeah, and I hate shopping in general, but particularly physical shopping. And I try to do all my shopping online where I can. I probably do, I don't know, it's probably in excess of 80% of my shopping or 90% of my shopping I do online. So I really, about the only thing that I do in person is supermarket shopping is probably the main thing that I do shopping in person, and even that I try to do click and collect wherever I can if I can get a bloody slot. So
we do. Look, I go shopping with my wife only to Aldi because I like the middle aisle. I mean,
yeah,
that's the only reason I ever go out shopping.
Yeah, totally. Now, if we think about the broader, I guess, context of, and obviously you've built out some really amazing technology that can help marketers and help brands and help non-technical people with a no-code environment. And obviously you've got API endpoints that if they do want to integrate with other back-end systems like ERPs, et cetera, and marketing automation platforms.
Yeah, like we've got a Masys and we've got Shopify, and we're just embarking on a Salesforce integration as well. Yeah, so you've got to have those, because ultimately those people have really started focusing on the data and the personalization data.
Correct.
And the better a text, the more personal, the more unique, the more relevant, the more timely a text message is, the more successful it's going to be.
Totally. And I think obviously integration with CDPs is going to become really critical as well. So the likes of the Lexer, which is based out of Melbourne, and the Segments of the world. And because a lot of, the smart brands are now starting to leverage zero and first party data, particularly with the impending death of third party cookies and privacy changes with iOS. Brands are starting to leverage zero and first party data unlike ever before. And so they're doing all their segmentation in a CDP, and then they're pushing out those segments to platforms like a Klaviyo or an eMarsis or a .digital to actually send the campaigns via email. But the segmentation is done in the CDP first, and then the sending and the workflow management is all done in the email marketing platform. So I'm guessing that if a brand wanted to integrate their CDP with your platform via API, then they could do that, and effectively they could drive all the segmentation out of the CDPs and create their cohorts there. And then
absolutely.
They create those cohorts dynamically.
No, absolutely. It's interesting you mentioned, because I saw Lexer and I saw some of the stuff they were doing, and I reached out to them, and they basically said, "Oh no, we're too busy. We're so busy, we haven't got time to talk to you." And I'm like, "Oh, you'll probably come back and have a chat sometime." But we just, because we've got big clients. We've got clients like Country Road, Silk Laser, Cocoa Republic. We've got big clients who do millions of transactions through these systems. And so the challenge, we keep talking to them about the absolute necessity to increase the personalization and to make it to be relevant, because there are some people who want a lot more engagement. There are some people who don't. So you've got to be able to segment, and you don't want to segment to a point where you're missing out, but the cleverer your data that you have and the way you manipulate it to interface with your clients, the more successful this channel is. Like in any channel, it's just another channel, right? It's just another channel. I mean, it's a bloody great channel in terms of, as I said, it's the Dan Draper perfect channel. Always. I mean, imagine if you said to Dan Draper, "Yeah, look, they'll all carry a television on, with them all times. They'll always have it on. You can personalize the message to the individual. It's completely two-way. I mean, it's a channel that's going to last a long time, and the affordability is not that bad. I think one in that article I was talking to you about, they're posting in the US that for every dollar they spend, they're revenuing 71 with text marketing. I mean,
that is a pretty good ROAS,
especially
to
email, because email's always been 32 to 44,
yep.
somewhere in that space. Yeah, so it's a big number. In Australia, MMS is a bit more expensive. So although we've seen, we just did a big campaign with one of our clients, and they spent I can't tell you who it is, but they spent 35,000 on the campaign, and the lift above their normal was 730 something.
Wow. Okay. So the ROI there is bloody great. And when you say MMS, you're talking image-based messages or multimedia-based images as opposed to pure text messages.
Yeah. Look, we recommend both. Like, you wouldn't want to just, MMS is more expensive, but with our MMS, because we've got the patent on the personalization, you can actually personalize that MMS. And so you can put their name on it, you can put codes on it, you can put coupon codes, and you can really personalize that message. And an MMS has a lot. So in an MMS, you carry your subject, you carry the vision, you carry up to 1,000 lines of text, plus you can attach a V card. So
it's more like an email via text, really.
Yeah, except you don't want it to be too long, because you really only have, it's that old Microsoft fish study, you've only really got 6 to 8 seconds to take them to your call to action. An MMS is a call to action. It is not, you can't make it that long. It's not can't be War and Peace. And even though you may have the ability to send 1,000 characters in the SMS component of an MMS, you push your vision off the screen.
Yeah, totally. No, yeah, it makes sense. And how do you work with clients in relation to the spam regulations as it relates to mobile contact? Now, what I mean by that is, typically when someone signs up, with a brand and they give over their email address, right at that point, 99% of the time they're asked whether they want to opt in or opt out to the mailing list, or that they even have that opportunity to opt into the mailing list before they even create an account on a website through a banner or whatever to sign up and to subscribe. Now, obviously, if a brand has never offered text message marketing before to their clients, then they probably wouldn't have asked at that point of sign up, or at the point of providing their cell phone number. They probably wouldn't have asked the customer to opt in or opt out at that point. So how do you manage that in terms of the initial implementation? So let's say, No,
I understand where you're coming from. I understand.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Definitely. It all depends what market. So I don't know where your podcast goes to.
It goes all over the world, but I'm based in New Zealand. But it is obviously probably most popular down in ANZ, but I got a huge American market as well.
Okay, then. So let's deal with like in the US, it's sort of governed by the California regulation, right? And in Europe and UK, it's GDPR. So that requires specific opt-in, and you really need to go and get that specific opt-in for your text messaging. And if you haven't got that, it's really very difficult. So they've had to go through the process of, in those two or multiple locations, they've had to go through a process of the registration and making sure they have specific opt-in for their text messaging. Okay, so in that space, the customers have to work through their models. I think some of them have used email to try and build a bridge to text and those types of things, but there's multiple ways of doing it. They've done a lot of work in those markets, but particularly in the US, which is well ahead in text than the UK and Europe. They've done a lot of QR code at store registration and opting in. So you walk into a store and you scan your QR code, it generates a keyword response, maybe gives you an offer or a coupon to opt in. So that's done in those markets. I have to be honest, Australia is nowhere near that level of regulation. The Spam Act here, it's the land of the cowboy, to be honest. They haven't really changed the regulation, and the act was written, I think, in 2003. But still, there is two types of consent in Australia. I'll come back to New Zealand, this is, really, it may be a bit boring for some, but in Australia, you have two types of consent for text marketing. You can have opted-in consent, specific, requiring yes, no, or you can have what they call inferred consent. And I would say 98% of text marketing in Australia that has been done for the last 5 or 6 years is based on the inferred consent provisions within the Spam Act. Inferred consent, let me see, there are 3 cores to it. One is, would this customer, the person that you're contacting, expect through their prior contact with you that you would somehow contact them for a marketing purpose? That's one. The second one is on inferred consent is, you're not selling illegal services, sex, love, drugs, things like that. And the third one is, does your text message contain a very clear opt-out capability and a very easy opt-out capability? And so therefore, if in Australia, if your text messaging complies with those 3 components, then you work under the inferred consent. The only prosecutions we've had in Australia in the Spam Act are where people have sent messages to people who have opted out. That's
obviously a major
That's a major, and that's, Woolies did it and Optus did it. They're the 2 ones that are quite big here in Australia that you can sort. But otherwise, people tend to initially use their delivery, their mobile number delivery lists or their registered lists.
Yes.
And they give their customers the clear opt-out option in that first and second message to make sure that they're not. And then once they have them, and the opt-outs are, we have customers now who've been doing it for 3, 4, 5 years, and they get, 0.001% opt-outs, but they would have got maybe 3 or 4% opt-out in their first and second message. Because as I said, there's that 3 to 5 or that 7 to 5% of people who, go, this is my mobile, I don't want you texting me on it.
Yeah, makes complete sense. And I'm guessing the New Zealand legislation is similar in that regard.
Oh, the New Zealand legislation is much more difficult.
Wow.
New Zealand, you don't have a commercial MMS product over there yet. Spark, 2 Degrees, and the other one, I can't remember it now. They don't
Vodafone, obviously.
That's right. Yeah, they don't necessarily agree on interconnect on MMS at the moment, although I hear that they're having conversations. SMS in New Zealand, if you send somebody an SMS, you have to pay for them to opt out. Okay, so it's a 2-way opt-out. So if somebody, you have to create basically you have to have the opportunity to contact them. And in New Zealand, as you know, they're of Scottish heritage and quite canny. Even the message that comes back from the person who says that I want to opt out, the vendor has to pay for, the vendor sending them the SMS message has to pay for that message.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And so does your technology, does it work in New Zealand?
It does. Yeah, it
with
does.
all the networks here?
It does.
Right.
We have customers who send from Australia. We have customers. We don't have any New Zealand-based customers at the moment because we were starting it and then we had COVID. And then we do have customers from Australia that send to New Zealand and manage the opt-out processes from here. Yes.
And I'm guessing that it's just simply a fact that to perform this type of marketing in New Zealand is just going to have a higher cost factor associated with it as a result.
Oh, look, we sent a guy over there about 3 years ago, and it really, I think what's fair to say is that 2015, we were very early with text message marketing. And so we spent a lot of time doing missionary work about text messaging. And so, I don't think New Zealand at the time, it still doesn't have MMS. And so commercially, it didn't really look like it stacked up in the short term. We think probably by the middle of next year, toward the end of next year, there will be a commercial MMS tool in New Zealand. And then we certainly think about putting people on the ground there because it's just such a high function product and such a high return. We've had customers I had a customer who had a list of 11,000 people who'd registered on their site but never purchased, right? And so they ran an MMS campaign with a coupon offer. Well, actually, it was a gift card offer. And they picked up within 3 weeks They picked up 19.9% of that list, of that 11,000. I think it was, the number was 2,173 new spending customers within 3 weeks from a list of people who were completely inactive and had only registered but never spent. And they'd emailed them and they'd tried other techniques but got nothing. So if you do an MMS campaign or an SMS campaign well, your returns and your ROIs are in the thousands there. When email's free, our enemies are two things, like our business's enemies are two things. One is people think email's free, okay? And the second thing is that people have overused SMS, and that causes a problem as well, because there is a view that customers don't want SMS, whereas the data from all over the world says 90+% of customers prefer text above anything else. You really need C-level support in your organization that this is something that you should be looking at and spending money on.
And I guess it requires a different type of marketing mindset as well. It needs to be highly segmented. B, it needs to be, really hyper relevant. C, it needs to not have, say, for example, the same frequency levels as email, because otherwise you're going to get massive opt-out rates. So it needs to be very infrequent. I mean, I don't know what your data shows, but I'm guessing that somewhere around 1 a month maximum is the kind of thing. Whereas, the rule of thumb with email is no more than 1 a week. So I'm guessing, absolutely.
It depends, Jason. Some of the data out of the US is that some customers want to, like, documented data from like Forrester that has been produced recently, that some people want to be contacted more than once a week via text, which I don't get. I think once a month would be plenty. And I think I've always said the enemy of text is overuse, because people get greedy. And
they do with email as well.
But email's passive. You can send me 1,000 emails and I won't see any of them.
Yeah.
You can't send me 1,000 SMSs because I'll see every one of them.
Yeah.
And so you're going to annoy the arse off me, and I'm just not going to have it. So you have to, with great power comes great responsibility type of thing. So you have to be very careful how you use it. All those points you made about having to be, very relevant, have to be, data centric and addressed to you, and, right time, right place, right time, right method, right, so you've got the right platform, has to be the right time, has to be the right message, has to be relevant. As you said, it's a new channel. It has a different set of challenges. We've had to talk a lot of customers down from using their email imagery, because email imagery doesn't fit the small screen. You've got to make sure that, you're telling people that they don't, they're not going to see this. They're not going to see this message on a laptop, and they're not going to see this message on a desktop. They're going to see this message on this screen, on the small screen. So you have to make that message relevant, grabbing. Its primary purpose is generating a call to action, and so you have to use that 6 to 8 seconds that you have to get them to see and react. And that's different to an email. It's a different platform. It's a totally different platform.
Yeah, and I guess that's the key, right? Is just you can't just go into this channel and treat it exactly like email, because you'll lose. And so you have to completely change. And I'm guessing that that's a large part of what you do, although you just purely provide the platform, and therefore you're not managing the campaigns and doing the creative and all that sort of stuff for merchants. I'm guessing that a large part of what you do is when they sign up for your platform is to give them advice, to give them recommendations, to give them best practice-based data sets that they can work with in terms of your, because I'm guessing that you're building up a pretty significant database of your own in terms of general data. And
what works and what doesn't. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, look, you've really picked up on the challenge of our life, is because we threw away the collared shirts and we went out and bought black T-shirts, because we found ourselves becoming a bit like an advertising company. We started to talk to people about, no, we don't think that will work. We don't think that image is right. And we're a company. I think at one stage we had, we spent over $3 million in developing and we had about 15 developers on site, to get to where we were. And then when we found that we were selling it, we ended up introducing a quality assurance program. So every send, when somebody pushes send using the platform, using Sniper, we have a group of people in the organization who actually get an alert message. And so we've asked, they can turn it off or turn it on, but all of them except one have it on, where we review the message. We take 40 minutes to review the message before it goes. So we go through a checklist, and then we will go back to them, and we are quite forthright, because we say to them, hey, you know, if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for us. We don't want you coming back to us and telling us that this messaging isn't working, because we know it works, but we also know what you're trying here is highly unlikely to work. You know, a really good example is, and that we ended up we built this in conjunction with our clients, obviously, over the last 7 years. But one of the things was A/B testing and making sure what worked A/B testing. And so, you know, we have a customer who had a list of 70,000 inactives that he wanted to go to. But he was like, I don't know what's going to work. And we don't know what's going to work either. So he said, I'm going to create 7 different types of MMS image and offers, and I'll send them to a group of 500. So I'll sacrifice 3,500. Some will work, some won't. Now, you know, one image got 4.5% response, like spending response. He was like, wow, that's great. And I'm like, no, that's rubbish. His top response was 17.5% purchase inclined, right? So the difference between number 1 and number 7 was, you know, 13.5%. And then he said, all right, then, and he took the 17.5% one and he ran it out to the other 66,000 clients, and he got about a 16% response rate across the whole group. But if he'd gone with the 4.5%, he would have been very unhappy. There is trial and error learning. It's a new channel. Sure, it delivers amazing numbers, but it can also be, if we don't step in and play an active role, it can also be a big spend for little return.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. I mean, it's the same with any other channel that you want to build out your cohort management in such a way that it facilitates easy A/B testing, you know. And with email, it's super easy, and it sounds like with your platform, it's now super easy with text messaging as well, which is great. And what do you have any competitors in the market? Are there any global players in your space that try to cover every country in the world?
Oh, that's
you know,
a really good question.
What is the competitive? And you know, obviously, you know, you're going to say yours is the best, which makes complete sense because you're an advocate of your own product, which totally makes sense. But are you guys kind of the only ones doing this in Australia, or in New Zealand, or in I mean, I'm guessing that you do have competitors in the market, even if your product is superior. I'm guessing that you're not the only company doing this. I know that obviously in the United States, there's every man and their dog seems to be advertising SMS. Sign up to my text list. You know, even bloody Gary V does it. So you know, clearly it's a growing channel.
Gary V, yeah, he does. He's sending 365 offers a year.
Yeah, you know, sending a wine text, you know, wine message a day kind of thing.
Yeah, he's kicking it. Look, we have a patent to be able to write to the MMS image. Okay, so that's unique. So we give our clients the ability to write to the image. Look, there are people it's a growing space. There are 2 sets of players in the messaging space. There are the global SMS suppliers who are starting to come together and realize that the best way to make money is to become a global SMS messaging provider. And I'm talking here about Cinch or Message Media. I think Message Media just got bought by Cinch. Let me see. Open Market got bought by, I think, Infobib. So there's a lot of people who just manage the messaging. And then there are other groups of companies who manage and give their customers the opportunity to produce quality personalized messaging. Okay. And so those companies in the US, the big one is a company called Attentive, which just has raised over the last 3 years about 886 million US to run messaging. Probably the longest serving one in the US is a company called Vibes. Vibes started in the pager marketing, hence the name Vibes. Most of those companies, though, have had a tool where yes, we'll run a campaign, give us your data, and over 6 to 8 weeks, we'll produce something for you. Because they're using probably the older platform technology for MMS before it went away. Because MMS's history was, it was an overpriced product. The second the over-the-top messaging products came in, then you would be in a fool to be sending your friends a picture at 50 cents, via phone, when you could do it through WhatsApp or Facebook or something like that. So, MMS after 2011 just went away. But a lot of those companies were doing message marketing prior to that. What's happened is that most of those companies have got a new life as email has started to struggle in its open rates. So, long answer to a short question. We don't really have a platform competitor in Australia. We have people who say they're in that business, that they're probably been doing transactional calendar reminder, delivery advice kind of things, and they're doing volumes of SMS. In the MMS space, there isn't anyone who has the patent to do the personalization. So we're the only ones who give our customers a complete platform to do that. So that's in this market. In New Zealand, you have messaging companies. Probably the biggest over there is Medica, I think. I think they also provide some services here for Optus. But yeah, and in the UK, there's a whole lot of European suppliers. What we have is a unique user-driven platform that's just been designed for marketers, easy to use. If you said this morning you wanted to do it, you could be up using it this afternoon. It's very easy to use, and they can get the messages out and they can get instant responses.
Awesome. Well, look, we're coming to the end of our time together, and I really do appreciate your time. I got 2 final questions for you before we close off. Do you see your competitor, not from a technology perspective, but from a broader market perspective around text messaging? Do you see the greatest competitor to text message marketing being marketing via social DM channels, i.e., Facebook Messenger and Instagram DM and Twitter DM and various other social DM marketing? Because that goes straight to the phone as well. Do you see email as your biggest competitor, or social DM based marketing as your biggest competitor to text message marketing? And then the second question is, what is the most interesting mobile marketing statistic that you've come across, say, in the last 6 months?
Okay. Who do we see as a competitor? Look, you don't see, it's not smart to try and take a new channel and call it a competitor, to be honest, because if you use so in an email sense, if you use text message marketing, your email rates go up because you put your brand in front of these customers and they see your brand in their email trail. Okay, so we don't see us as a competitor to email. We are an alternative or a supplement to email in that space. In relation to the DM and what I would call that list of OTT offerings that you were talking about, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, all those types of things. The problem with all of those products is they are not ubiquitous in their delivery. So I can't send, how you arrange your WhatsApp connection, how you keep it, and those types of things. The best thing about SMS and MMS is it's delivered over the telephony network, not the internet. It's delivered over the telephony network. It's point to point, and you've got total ubiquity. You know that whoever you're sending to, you get. Whereas if I send a Facebook message, I don't know if I send a WhatsApp promotion or I send a Facebook message outbound promotion, not that I'm allowed to do that, I can't guarantee who's going to get it. It's kind of the big problem with the Google RCS, that Apple said no, and therefore Google RCS hasn't been picked up by Apple customers, and therefore it doesn't offer customers the ubiquity of delivery. So we don't see it as a competitor. We just basically say, we walk into a customer and go, I can guarantee point-to-point delivery, one-to-one, personalized with this product. There isn't another platform in the world that can give you that. I think the biggest stat I saw was that one I mentioned earlier. When I saw that 18.2% of their revenue was coming from text message marketing, I almost fell off my chair. And when I saw a customer the other day spend, $35,000 and pocket over $730,000 from the same promotion, and that was a lift above what they were spending. So I suppose they're the two biggest numbers that amazed me, that this channel is just delivering such huge results. They're
Wow.
they're big numbers, and they can't be ignored. And so we've moved into a new sense with our clients where we say, guys, this is a channel that is going to be around for a long time, a long time. So start well, do well. Don't, do everything you possibly can to make sure that you set up with this client base well, because you're going to be using it for a long time. And as social gets more expensive, I don't know if, because there are more, you've got your traditional bricks and mortars now spending a lot more money in social and SEO than they were. So they're driving the prices up. So it'll be interesting to see in 2 or 3 years what the spread of email, social, drive-by search is across the online revenue base.
Absolutely. Well, John, thank you once again for all of the amazing information. You shared a lot of stuff that I just was not, familiar with. And I like to think I'm pretty up to speed with most digital marketing channels and how they work, but not very, very enlightening. Now, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way? What are the best channels to get a hold of you?
The best way is just John. I'm happy to take email, john@mobile.digital.
John@mobile.digital. Too easy. And obviously connect up with you on LinkedIn as well, which is how obviously you and I connected.
Yeah, Jason. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk, because as you say, I spend my day talking to people about this stuff. And it's an interesting channel, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about it with you.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure to have you on. And look, maybe sometime in the future, we'll hopefully be able to do this again. And I'm sure you'll have even better data and new data to share the next time around.
Let's hope so.
Cheers, John. Speak to you soon.
Cheers, Jason. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the At the Coalface podcast. If you want more At the Coalface, you can subscribe to our premium e-commerce and digital newsletter, At the Coalface Digest.